Hello, everybody. To first start things off, I'm sorry about the scenery. I know it's not that professional, but it's the best I could do with this new hurricane since I couldn't go back to California. I was able to find a place though, so I'm all safe for now. But my name is John Kersey. I'm the COR 111 class, and today I'm going to be doing my speech on Pedro Menendez. Pedro Menendez was born in Aviles, Spain on February 15th of 1915, where he lived a decent life with wealthier parents as his dad was a professor at the time. Although in any other family at the time, the wealth could have been divided evenly, but with 19 siblings, that would have been pretty tough. So instead, he decided to start his life as someone at sea. According to Britannica, he ran away to sea at the age of 14, and in 1549, he was commissioned by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V to drive pirates away from the coast of Spain. 5 years later, he was appointed captain of the Indies fleet. Pedro was actually captured soon after by some enemies he made along his journey, but was finally released after 2 years due to the help of the king and numerous trades. After his return, he was tasked with the mission to remove the French settlers and establish a colony in Florida. So in 1565, Pedro Menendez sailed with about 11 ships and near 1,000 men. After a long boat ride with many casualties, including nearly 100 men in some of the boats, he finally reached Florida with about 800 to 1,000 men left. Menendez had planned to travel up the St. Johns River, but he discovered that the French were blocking the mouth of the river with their ships. So on August 28th, Menendez withdrew and sailed to a smaller harbor just south of Fort Caroline, which is where they were. Here they set up camp and began to call it what we now know as St. Augustine. After getting all settled in with food, preparing for war, and forming bonds with the native Timucuan Indians, is how, I believe how you pronounce it, on September 20th, he took the nearby French colony of Fort Caroline and massacred the entire population and was even hanging bodies on the trees. And according to Action Cultural, all women and kids were released and most men were killed except for the few of the most useful men were taken prisoner. Among the captives was a French navigator, a bunch of carpenters and caulkers, 12 sailors, and even some musicians. He then continued to explore around the Atlantic Ocean to set up a string of forts to protect from the attackers and overall began expansion, including a watchtower to spot attackers. Once settled in, more and more settlers arrived, and then the once fort started to become a new and blooming town. Pedro Menendez de Aviles, the seaman, set a path for him and many others into a new life. He was always faced with many situations and obstacles, like starting at such a young age, traveling the oceans regardless of storms, and even being captured. But his tough perseverance and grit was able to get him through most things, and he founded the nation's oldest city. That work has put together lives and homes for many and landed him a spot as one of the top ever Spanish colonial governors. So without the help of Pedro Menendez, the area of St. Augustine would most likely be completely different. The French would have colonized a lot wider, and even more forces would have been there. So they would have claimed a lot more land and continued conquering the US. And as we know it, there would have been a lot more places that were different as well. So good thing everything happened the way it did, or maybe Flagler College wouldn't even be the same, and Miss Pleasant might not have even been our teacher in the first place. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy your day.